Welcome, everybody, to a special post-game edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton. I am in the back of the press box at AT&T Stadium, and boy, the Giants keep finding ways to break your hearts, I'm sure. Appreciate the All In audience, as always. Today's final score, if you stuck with it to the end, the Cowboys, 40-37 winners in overtime. And, sometimes you just watch a game and you kind of figure out, they could really win this one. They really need to win this one. And alas, with what's happened with this franchise and where they've been, I think it's hard to put into words sometimes the crushing ways that the Giants have found ways to lose games. Let's start off the top. I mean, this was turn the clock back, vintage Russell Wilson today. You look at what he could have done today had they won that game. Russell overall, 30 for 41, 450, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Obviously, we'll get to that in a second. But when you look 25 seconds left, when he hits Malik Nabers for the second of 2 touchdowns today, splits the 2 defenders from 48 yards out. Malik Nabers gives the go-to-sleep sign to the crowd here at Jerry World. I think everyone on the Giants sideline thought this game's over. And unfortunately for the Giants, the Cowboys have the one weapon in that spot that's probably greater than Tom Brady in the fourth quarter, Patrick Mahomes when he's down, Saquon Barkley when you need a big run in Philly, or Jalen Hurts when you need a tush-push touchdown. Brandon Aubrey is the best kicker in the NFL. I don't care what stats say, and performance-wise, when you have a kicker who can get to the logo and put one through the uprights, the Giants knew it. They knew his range starts when he gets off the bus. And to know that he was able to knock through a 64-yarder as time expired in regulation, it's such a weapon when you have a tight game in that situation. And Aubrey ended up beating the Giants again in overtime as the time expired. So not only did you Giants fans need to suffer through yet another excruciating loss to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, it's now 14 games in a row against Dak and the Cowboys, haven't won here since 2016. When you look at the way you lost, the defense couldn't come up with a stop at the end of regulation. I know everybody wants to scream about Shane Bowen. Sometimes it's about the players. Yes, they were playing a little soft zone in that situation, but you also don't want to give up a big play and give up a touchdown, which is what they did the previous drive at the end of regulation. So it's one of those things where, the offense deserved better here. Now, granted, Russell Wilson throwing that interception in overtime at the 2-minute warning, it sure looked like he was getting jittery in the pocket, and that's why he kind of chucked it up. He expected Malik Nabers, I think, to run a post. Nabers broke the route off and went outside. They really weren't talking too much about how it was Russ said it was a miscommunication. Like I said, it looked like Russell for the first time really just chucked and ducked, which is what he did a lot in week 1 in Washington, led to, a really bad performance that everyone was calling for his job, and rightfully so, the way he performed. But that's kind of where we're at. But, I think the biggest thing for the Giants right now is 21 penalty flags on the Giants. That's 14 called penalties and accepted. There were 3 offsetting penalties on the same play, which is still a crazy rule in the NFL that could happen. And then when you look at what happened there were 4 other penalties to go up to 21 that the Cowboys declined because they took the result of the play. So 21 penalties, it's inexcusable. Dexter Lawrence said that afterwards. He was asked, was it a discipline issue? look, it's accountability for the players, accountability for the coaching staff. It just can't happen. Kayvon Thibodeau talked about that after the game. He was up front, said it just can't happen. The way Dex said, we gave up almost 200 yards of penalties. That's essentially 2 touchdowns. And in his mind, it was the length of the field. So if you're giving up that much yardage, you're giving up the length of the field. So that's a big thing. You're not going to win in the NFL. I mean, the fact that the Giants still had a chance to win this game in spite of 21 penalty flags, 14 actual penalties, is really amazing. 160 yards in penalties for the Giants that were accepted. I think overall, this game, when you look at what they got out of the receivers, Malik Neighbors, just go through a couple of the stats. I mean, Malik Neighbors, 9 catches on 13 targets, 167 yards, 18.6 average, 2 touchdowns, a long of 48. Wan'Dale Robinson, how about that? 8 receptions on 10 targets, 142 yards, a 17.8 average, long of 50, and a touchdown. And he had the slot fade that they ended up hitting with about 2 minutes to go in regulation. It was just a wild game. I think what you like about this performance for the Giants, if there's anything to take out of it, is that they did show some resolve, that this team did show that they were willing to fight. That last week, maybe it was a little bit more of an aberration, that they're closer to the Cowboys than they are Washington, or at least Washington in week 1. But the fact remains is that they are 0-2 for the 10th time since the 2013 season. That's 5 coaches: Tom Coughlin, Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, and Brian Daboll. It really is amazing. The level of football that has been around here is rough. It really is. We finally got to saw the Jackson Dart package, which I think is interesting because it gives the defense something else to look at. As far as the zone reads, it worked. Cam Scadaboo gets his first career touchdown. The play before it was the zone read with Dart. Dart read it perfectly, gave it to Scadaboo. He ran 24 yards down to the goal line, and then Scadaboo scores from 1 yard out. That was a big play. Dart wants that one play back where he kept the ball. He had some room to run, and he tripped over the turf monster here at Jerry World. So I know Dart is going to be focused in on that and how frustrating he's going to be about that. I thought Cordell Flott played well. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The first drive for the Giants, 4 penalties by James Hudson at left tackle. He also allowed a sack. Just a terrible performance for a veteran, and showed everyone why he's no longer the answer at left tackle. Marcus Bowe gets the opportunity, played pretty well today. Talked to him afterwards. I'll have more on Marcus later this week. But if Andrew Thomas is not ready to go next Sunday night at MetLife against the Swifties, who are also 0-2, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, Taylor Swift, I think Bowe will be at left tackle if Thomas is not ready to go. If he's not and Thomas is ready to go, then I think Bowe will be the swing tackle. I don't think you can put James Hudson back on the field right now if you have other options. And Bowe, I thought, all things considered, have to go watch the tape and see, some of the plays. But I think for the most part, he was really good today. I really thought it was quiet on that side after that first series, and it says a lot for them. I know some of you wanted Brian Daboll to yank Hudson out of the lineup on that drive. You're not going to do that to Marcus Bowe. You're not going to put a rookie in there for his first action, throwing him in there when you're benching the veteran that was starting. Now, if there's an injury, it's a little different story. You're stopping, but you're not going to burn a timeout and send Bowe out there. You're going to wait, and then you can see on TV, you can read Brian Daboll's lips. I mean, go Bowe. it just was not going to happen. So I think that's kind of where we're at. I mean, there's not much else to say in the post game other than this is a game that the Giants could have had. It was a much better performance, same result. As Dexter Lawrence said, this league is all about W's and L's. It was almost about a T, but W's and L's. No matter how you get the W, you feel good. No matter how you get the L, you feel bad. And this team still has some more soul searching to do going into this week. But if they can capture some of the things that they did well today, I think, I don't know if they're going to beat the Chiefs. I don't know if they're going to beat the Chargers. But I think as a Giants fan, if you take a step back, you can see a little identity for this team right now. And I think that's kind of what you want to see. But look, there are a lot of field goal heartache for the Giants. Graham Gano beat them down in Carolina. Jake Elliott beat them in Philly. It's kind of funny how the Giants just come down to game-winning field goals. Either they lose by them, and it's a horrible situation, or they win when the other team misses it. And that was Dable in the 22 opener. It's just one of those things where, there's a lot to this game today. I think the biggest biggest take I come out of it is that Russell Wilson is going to be the starter here right now. And he's kind of given the Giants several weeks more of kind of tempering the Jackson Dart situation. Although I think Dart may have more of a role on this team right now in that situation. Maybe he gets a drive, gets a series. I think that's kind of what we're going to see. So as far as the kickers in this league, boy, you almost have to treat every situation where it's going to be a field goal if the team gets to midfield. And I don't know if the NFL ultimately will want to do that, or are kicks excited. I think some teams feel like seeing the kicks like this are exciting. Not exciting for the Giants, I tell you that much. So we'll see. Another thing to watch at running back, what happens now with Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scatterboo. Tyrone Tracy was on kickoff return. Now he did get some touches. Let's go to the stat sheet. Tracy was only 5 carries for 15 yards for Tracy. Scatterboo was 11 carries for 45 yards, a 4.1 yard average. I think you're going to see more Cam Scatterboo right now. They're going to ride the hot hand, but I think, it makes me wonder, did Tyrone Tracy's comments this week about the offense and about calling more plays, more run plays, did that kind of upset some people behind the scenes? And they say, you know what, we're going to give Cam Scatterboo a little bit more of a look. Now, Tyrone Tracy is a 5th-round pick. Scatterboo's a 4th-round pick. So if you're calling seniority for second-year player versus a rookie, you go Tracy. But as far as where they're at and draft capital and what you've invested in them, it's pretty much the same, maybe even with a tip of the cap to Scatterboo for being around earlier. So that's something to keep an eye on. Wan'Dale Robinson answers all the critics. Everybody's saying that Wan'Dale Robinson isn't explosive. Cowboys couldn't cover him today. I would like to go to maybe some other guys on third down because it seemed like a couple of those plays the Cowboys were doubling up on Wan'Dale. So you need to find some more answers there. I thought Theo Johnson catching some passes early helped him out. I thought you saw some good from Paulson Adebo today, some bad. I think you saw some good from Javon Holland, some bad. And what they do at inside linebacker now is going to be interesting. You don't have Micah McFadden. Chris Board was out with a chest injury, and Darius Musow has a concussion. So they got to figure something out at inside linebacker. But that's where we're at. So 40-37. The last game that I can remember like this was 52-49 in the 2015 season down in New Orleans, the Halloween Classic between Drew Brees and Eli Manning, Odell Beckham Jr.'s first game in New Orleans, and that game ended on, of course, a game-winning field goal for the Saints after a face mask penalty on Brad Wing on a punt. So that's where we're at. So 0-2 Giants next Sunday night against the 0-2 Kansas City Chiefs. Get ready, Swifties. It's going to be a fun party at the Meadowlands. All right, for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. Thanks for watching today's All In, and we'll be back with coverage all week at NorthJersey.com, and we'll have an All In later this week. We're working on some guests. We'll see if we can pull it off. So appreciate you watching. Appreciate you being all in. I'm all in as well. And be heading back tomorrow to Jersey. Spend the rest of the night here in Dallas trying to figure out how the Giants went and lost this one. So appreciate it. Thanks for being all in, and we will talk to you later this week.